Okay, everyone, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. If you have been here for at least 5 minutes, you've already met my co-host today. Tonya's on again. We're going to be talking about some interesting stuff, audio versus video podcasting, and some news and some things. And we both have a curveball to throw at each other. It's going to be interesting. Tonya, welcome back, co-host. Round 2 together. Nice to have you back again.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to catching up on what you've learned and what all's been happening with you. It's been a few weeks at least since we talked last.
Right. It feels like 5 minutes, but we're here again. Bang. It's back again. I love it. Really enjoyed our conversation last time and looking forward to this and future conversations because you bring some great insight. And I love just kind of going back and forth. And then as well, always helping the person listening with their show. What can we do? What kind of advice we can give them to encourage them listening right now that you can do this. You can be a podcaster. And Tonya's got great tips for you. And we're going to uncover them today. Tonya, tell everybody about your podcast. And for those who haven't heard the last episode with you, a brief history, who you are and what you do. And
all right. So my name is Tonya Wollum. I'm the host of the Water Prairie Chronicles. Water Prairie was designed to help support and encourage families of children with disabilities and special needs. And so we run through a series of guests who have either grown up with a disability, they're parents of children with disabilities, or they may be a professional or an organization that supports special needs families. And we're always looking for new content to try to help families. And you may be listening and thinking, that's not for me because I don't have a child with a disability. But I'd like to correct you on that because you probably know someone who has that situation, or as you meet people on the street and you just want to understand them a little bit better or to know what's the appropriate thing to say to someone that you don't know what to say whenever someone's in a wheelchair or something. So listening to it and hearing my guests, you'll really have your eyes open to understanding your neighbors and people in your community more. So check it out if you get a chance.
Beautiful. And you have an amazing podcast voice, by the way.
Thank
I love it. Very soothing and exciting. Okay, Tonya, we're going to be talking about, you poked the bear on this one. So I love this. We're going to go all in on audio versus video podcasts. And I know that you have some thoughts about this that you want to talk about.
I think I threw down the gauntlet that we were going to have a showdown, audio versus video. So we'll see how it goes with the discussion.
See? All right. We're all going to be friends
yes,
here.
We are.
We're all great friends. We love it. Podcasting is whatever it works for you. I had probably 5 conversations this week with new podcasters struggling with this very question.
Wow.
So this is exactly what we need to talk about. So well done, well placed for content suggestion. Here's my challenge right now with some of them. I've had video people who do video who say, Dave, I want to start a podcast and I want a video podcast. I have all the gear. I've been doing this for years. I love video. Can I do a video podcast? Quick answer, yes.
Right.
Please. This is your skill set. This is where you are. You got everything. You do this on a regular basis. A video podcast makes sense. Well done. And then I have people who reach out to me, Tonya, and they're like, I can't be seen on camera. I want to protect my privacy. I don't want to be seen on camera. If my boss finds out I'm talking about this, I'm done. But I have a message for the world. And I really want to get out there. Do I have to do video? Because I'm really scared. I don't have any of the equipment. I've never done it. But I feel like everyone's telling me I have to do it. Do I have to?
No.
No.
Right. I agree.
What I want to just encourage anyone listening that you don't have to do, there's not one size fits all. It's not like if you're doing it this way, it's right. And if you're doing it this way, it's wrong. There's just one thing I'd like to put out in front of everyone as just kind of a basic level is who's your audience? Who do you want to reach? And where are they? If you say to me or to Tonya that my audience is on YouTube, nowhere else, then maybe a video podcast would be good for you. And maybe that's where you need to put all your energy. If you say, Dave, my audience doesn't have access to YouTube due to bandwidth and Wi-Fi and data, and they don't watch video, they listen. And they download the file onto their phone, and they take it with them where they have no connection to the internet. Video is not going to be a good choice for you because of the size of the file. So maybe audio is better for you. Or maybe both. I don't know. that's kind of where we're going with this. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, this is going to get fun because I don't know where I fit, or I'm staunch about video only, or I'm staunch that podcasting is only audio. Okay, here we go. We're going to get into this, but I love the fact that you, Tonya, you have your own version of this, your own expertise. Tell us your background about your podcast and video, audio. Where do you sit on this fence? Let's talk about that.
Before I jump into that, I wanted to add to what you're saying. Part of why I wanted to talk about this, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do it like a showdown, but I think a lot of podcasters, they get started on one, and then they either, if they're in the video side or they're putting too much time into something, then they just stop. And before exploring, do we just put a complete halt on this? Maybe we need to look at, is it the right format for you? And so I'm hoping that maybe through our discussion today, we'll be able to provide some tips and tricks that you and I have learned that have worked, or maybe choices that we've made to change directions because of some of those blocks that might be there. So before someone gives up, I always want them to explore what their options are. A point here that I wanted to point out was my audience is everywhere. And so to me, it's more important that I find my listener or my reader or my watcher, whatever you may want to call them. So I'm actually on all the platforms, including a print version on my website, because I do have disability as part of mine and I want everything to be accessible. But I got into this because I have a cooking channel on YouTube. Years ago, my kids and I started just a household tips and cooking channel. So video was where my platform was coming into this. I wasn't a podcast listener. I shared that last time, but I have become one. And I've learned that there are different channels with this. And so the easy slide in for me was to start with the video, because I didn't have a lot of equipment, but I knew how that side of it worked. I knew how to set up the SEO and things like that. But I'm finding, well, we may get into this more later, but I'm finding the audio sometimes is a whole lot easier. So for time's sake, I like that part of it. So I'm becoming, I don't know, a mixed bag here as far as which one do I like better on it. So I'm going to be arguing both sides of this argument, I think, by the time we're finished here. But I'm going to throw it back to you though. So did you start with audio or did you start with video? Where were you?
I started with audio, and when it fit the content. So if I had somebody holding up a product or a thing or a visual, then the video made sense. The video did come out as well. But again, everyone listening, please just understand, I have 7 shows, and multiply your efforts times 7 and the cost times 7 for anything that we're talking about. And that will also answer why I'm doing what I'm doing. Would I be doing it different if I only one show? Maybe I would, because I would have more money and more time than I currently have with 7 different podcasts. So just keep that as a filter as I say my words, that you're like, oh, but that's not right. Remember, I have 7 shows that I'm doing. Just keep that in mind as I give all my answers and all my insight. Keep the number 7 in the back of your mind. So I like video. I enjoy it. I have tools that I use to make the video. I love the experience of watching a podcast because I like to see the people. Yeah. I enjoy that part of it. I love throwing it on my big screen TV and sitting in my living room in my comfy chair, having a snack, watching my favorite podcast. That's cool because I feel like now I have a face to the name. Mm-hmm. I get the inside jokes. I get the things that are going on behind them. I want to see what's behind them too. I like that. That's kind of cool. I like their setups. I like all that nerdy stuff. For me, that's interesting. The one thing that I struggle a little bit with is when I typically listen to a podcast, I'm usually doing something else where I don't have my time and attention on a screen. I'm working, I'm walking my dog, I'm in the yard, and I hit play and I put my phone away. I'm not even looking at it. And it automatically plays the next episode. I don't even fast forward commercials. I just leave it in my pocket and I do my thing. So I'm not focused on a video screen all of the time. I find myself as a listener of podcasts to maybe be 10 to 20% of the time I'll watch a video, but the majority of the time I consume podcasts, it's my phone in my pocket. I have no idea what's going on. I don't, even if it's a video, I just leave it in my pocket.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it. So everything I talk about is through the lens of how I view podcasts or how I consume it. So again, that's my defaults. So just have that all up front as we talk. That makes sense to you?
It does. I was going to say, even on the video ones, I do a lot of listening when I'm in the car driving. So I'll even turn on a video, and like you're saying, my phone's out of sight because I can't take the chance of trying to turn and look at it because I'm driving the car. But I'm still listening to it. So it's the same format, and that's what I came to understand is that a podcast is primarily audio. We have some we add the video to it, and you can see. And I'm like you, I do like to see who it is. The days of being a kid and listening to radio shows and all, and always wondering what did they look like, and then seeing a billboard later and putting together, which one is which voice, right? It never was what I pictured in my head. It was like reading a book and then watching a movie. It's never gonna be the same. But I do want to kind of understand when they're referring to something, and I think it helps to kind of see that personality. You see their mannerisms while they're talking. It adds to it, but the content of what's in there is almost 100% audio that you're listening to, the storytelling, everything else that comes along with it. So even though I do like the video side of it, it's just there are people who consume one side or the other. And you have YouTube that's doing podcasts now, so on YouTube Music, just the listening side of it. So I think everyone recognizes that podcast for what it is, from how they were created from the beginning of time, is an audio format. With that, it's just the matter of, does the video add to it or not, and what's the best platform. And I really like the way that you introduce that with where you're starting from and what is your basis to begin with, as far as jumping in on that side of it.
Yeah. And the other part is cost.
Yes.
Right. So if you're hosting your podcast and it's an audio podcast, you have, depending on who your hosting site is and who's distributing your podcast, you have a monthly fee that you pay if you have a paid host, and you have a limit. So audio files size are smaller than video file size. That's just a fact. If you're going to go with a hosted video file through a hosting site, you're going to pay more to have it hosted outside of the confines of YouTube. Right. For example, do you have the money to do that? Every week, every month, whatever you're doing, whatever your cadence is for your podcast, do you have the financial assets to pay for file storage for big file formatted video footage?
Yeah.
Can you afford it? Because if you can't, and you're not financed, and you're a hobby podcaster like me, you don't have an income from your show, and I'm paying for everything because I work. So I go work my job, I come home, and then I do this on my spare time. I don't have $5,000 per episode to produce this. And 7 times podcast, I don't have 7 times the income to pay for all these video files to go into the world. So YouTube is great in the sense that it doesn't cost me anything to upload. But if you're not on YouTube, how are you going to hear me? How are you going to find me if I'm only there and if I'm only video?
When if you're going to produce your podcast on Instagram or one of the other video formats, how long can it be? With the video, you're going to be really restricted in how much content you can. I mean, you can post it and let it live there for free, but you're not going to do an hour-long podcast and post it on those platforms. I haven't worked with Vimeo. Am I saying it right? Is there a limit on the size with that? I think that's the other major video one.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's also Rumble.
Oh, right. I forgot about Rumble.
Another one.
Right.
Yeah, that's another one. They all have their own limits and their own and things. YouTube is going to be the big elephant in the corner where everybody knows what YouTube is. So here's my little curveball for you. Right now in Colorado is Podcast Movement, and an announcement has come through today through email from there. A big shot, Steve from YouTube, was on stage being interviewed about podcasting in YouTube, and there's news. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
No, I haven't.
But here's the news. I have it on my screen. I already recorded an episode ta-da, because, I have time. And I put it out already. But here's what's coming. YouTube is going to ingest our RSS feed into YouTube. It's going to be audio only, no video from this feed that we're talking about so far, is what we know. It's going to be available on the YouTube Music app. Podcasts are currently available in US, Canada, and Latin America on the app. And on track for a global rollout by the end of the year for everywhere in the world. That's big. Okay, and here's some of the promises from YouTube around podcasting, which I really like. Okay, and this is something you don't usually hear from a big place like YouTube, is they're including a podcast section on their website. There's going to be additional analytics for podcasters. Right. There's going to be improved discoverability, which is a big thing everybody talks about. Good. Finding our shows. There's going to be better search for podcasts. There's going to be, especially, and they make this qualifier, better search for podcasts if you currently engage with podcast content.
Right.
So YouTube already knows that you play in that as a listener. So they're going to feature more podcast geared stuff to you because you're currently a podcast consumer on YouTube. They also have learned that YouTube Music expects this to have show level auto downloads of your podcast, which is interesting because that means you haven't actually listened to it. It's queued up for you to listen to, but it automatically downloads your new episodes as they're releasing into your queue.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. When I have that, I listen on Spotify, and for me, because I like music, I'm a musician. So I'm already on Spotify for my music. So I just listen to my podcast there, and all my new episodes go into a folder, new episodes, and I just play them there. So they're already waiting for me, downloaded, but not listened to. Questions there. But the one thing about podcasts as well on YouTube is they're going to unlock additional places where your show will be, and the big word, promoted on YouTube as a podcaster. So right now, CNN actually has, it's called CNN One Thing as a podcast, and they are actually one of the testers of this new system.
Okay.
And I'll send you all the information in an email.
Please
so you have it too. But you can actually go there and see what it looks like. It's just static image and the audio attached. So everything that I've been told by the gurus for the last X number of years is completely incorrect because they want static image, no video, audio only podcasts that can be played through YouTube Music. So all those experts with all those episodes that told us never do that, only videos on YouTube, never do static image, they're all incorrect. And they're all going to have a heart attack when they hear this. And they're going to be quite angry. But I love it because I've been doing static image for one reason. I have 7 shows. And I have more episodes than my host will let me upload. So what I do is I treat YouTube as a Google Drive that anybody can access. And I tell my guests, your episode will be live today or tomorrow after we've done recording. You'll have it immediately. But it'll show up in the listening app probably 3 months from now because that's how many episodes I have. I can't get you in any sooner. You can have it today because I'll have it all done, finished, and on YouTube. Static image, audio, it's yours. And I tell my listeners, if you've listened to all of these episodes, that's crazy that you've caught up to all these episodes. Wow. But if you want to hear what I recorded today or yesterday, go to YouTube and you can hear the most recent episode. And then it just lives there. So no one's waiting for the content. And I have free storage of my backup files. Right. If my computer takes a nap, I can go to YouTube and download the audio from my podcast. I still have a copy. It's just a Google Drive that just happens to be called YouTube. And I've been doing this from day one, even though everyone told me not to. And now YouTube has said, guess what? We want static image posts, YouTube, audio only. Everyone, please get ready. And what they're telling everyone right now is if you don't have your podcast on YouTube and you want to be a part of this as it rolls out near the end of the year, create a YouTube channel, create a playlist, convert it to a podcast, put your show art, your item, your podcast name and description, have everything ready, and just start putting your stuff there. And as this rolls out, you're going to get swept up in the whole new whatever this is. My only caveat is if you only do this and you don't do an audio feed that goes to Apple, Google, Audible, fill in the blank. If you don't do that as well, you're only going to be within YouTube. And people who listen outside of YouTube will never hear your show. So do both.
Yeah. I mean, I say if you have access to it, if you have the RSS feed, plaster it everywhere because you have listeners on every platform. And I'm sure I'm missing some, but I have at least a dozen that I put them out. And I found a few groups that would just promote it to their larger group. Yeah. So some of this it's kind of interesting. So this was announced this way. What was it? I think in February they announced that they were rolling out the podcast. And we knew how to make the playlist for the podcast to have it identified. And then I've had the podcast tab for at least a few months now on my YouTube account. And so you have all of my videos, but then you have the full list. It's just one running playlist on there. And I have the show art in the format that they want for that. So are they saying that they want just a static image on the entire thing and not a video at all?
Episode. That's what they're asking for what's coming in the future.
So so for those that are doing video, do we need to go back then and and repost all of those past podcasts?
It's a good question. I'm sure there's people yelling at the speakers right now going, yes or no. I'm sure there's going to be somebody saying that, but I don't know yet.
It is a question I want to find an answer for before I go too far, because I'm releasing episode 74 this week. So I'd like to know how many I need to go back and re-release again. I mean, I have it. It would just be a matter of taking off the top of it. But even so, I'm thinking on this one. So if that is what the answer is, that they want the static image, I would still release my video one and the static image. I would just do double for everything. So then you have it all. And I know, and we've been waiting for the YouTube music around the world. The US rolled out pretty early, and I think Canada did too as well, right?
Yeah.
And then UK was coming behind. I think Australia's coming soon. But they have been talking about this for several months now, waiting for it to roll out. So for me, I've just been lining mine up to be ready when they do roll it out. So as each piece has hit, I've been ready for that. But the static image is the piece that I'm missing. So I need to find that answer, if that's going to keep it from going somewhere.
Yeah. And so I know on Libsyn does it automatically. They'll automatically upload a static image post of your audio for you. It's part of their package, which is kind of cool. Okay. I don't get that where I host with Buzzsprout or Spotify for podcasters. But I use oneimagevideo.com. It's a free website, and you put your YouTube thumbnail. That was oneimagevideo.com.
Yep.
You put your YouTube thumbnail in one field, and then you upload your MP3, and it combines the two into an MP4 and gives you a free download. Doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
So I've been using that for 4 years and never had a problem. Works great.
So if I want to change my thumbnails, this is the time to do it before putting the static image up.
On a side note, on the idea of art for your podcast, Apple has also announced that they're going to have episode art specific to each episode now coming up near the end of the year. So you can have unique art for every single episode. So if you have a guest, you can have their picture instead of having your generic everyday picture for your entire podcast. If you want to, go ahead and start doing it, because it's going to roll out later on in Apple. It's been always there, but they've just never clicked the switch on. So
right, I was going to say, it's always been the option to put it in there, but I hadn't realized that it wasn't showing. I haven't done that yet, but I have thought about it because I have the thumbnail already created. I have the artwork for Instagram and all that I'm promoting each episode. So it's already there. It's just a matter of, do I upload it or not?
There you go. So that's a side
interesting.
Note. Anyways, so on that news about YouTube and all that, anything stand out to you that you didn't anticipate, or you're like,
No, I like it. I think they're going to go beyond where I thought they were going to go. So that's nice. I like hearing that they're going to be helping to promote it as well. So it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see what we need to put in our comments and our descriptions and all to have it ready. And that's going to be just a matter of hearing from them what it is, how they're going to promote it. And I would say for now, my gut's telling me that I need to make sure that I'm putting in very good descriptions that are using those primary keywords that my episode is about so that it can find it easily. But knowing YouTube, it's going to take a transcript of the entire episode anyway and file with that. So we may not have to give it much.
What I've been telling my guests on my podcast for authors is every time you go on a podcast as a guest, ask the host if it's going to be on YouTube. Because what you can do as a guest then is take that copy of your episode on my show, create your own playlist of all the episodes that you've been on as a guest.
Yes.
Drop them in, just save them to that playlist, convert that playlist into a podcast. And as a guest, without any heavy lifting, you have your own podcast of you guesting on all these different shows that you can then have within YouTube. It won't be available on Apple or Google.
Right.
It'll be on YouTube, but you technically have your own podcast within the confines of YouTube, and you don't have to do anything except be a guest. That's so easy. And then take the transcription of your guesting appearance, download those words that you spoke on my podcast. That could be the source of new content for social media, a new chapter in a new book.
Oh, yeah.
Those are your words.
A blog post.
They belong
anything.
to you. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you questions you don't think to talk about on my show. And I'm going to bring out stories that you're like, I've never told anybody this, but yeah, there was a time when I did the blah, 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 blah. And you've never told anybody that. Go to the transcription, pull your words down and do whatever you want with them. They belong to you. So beyond being a guest, you can now turn it into a podcast and you don't have to do anything.
Great advice with that. I know I've heard you mention that before, and I think putting that playlist together is a great idea. And I'm guesting now on some other podcasts, and I hadn't thought about that. I need to listen to that myself and make sure that I'm putting that off to the side as well.
It's great.
So thank you for that reminder.
There you go.
It's always good, right?
Okay, so that's the YouTube component from your perspective, pros and cons of video podcast versus audio. What kind of things are in your thoughts as well?
So I'm thinking maybe let's talk about some of the, like, what are the positives coming from audio only and the positives coming from video only?
Okay.
What do you think if we approach it that way? So having more audio than video on your end, what comes to mind as far as what's positive for having just the audio? You've mentioned some already just as we've been talking.
Yes.
But what are some of the reasons that maybe someone would want to go with audio if it was just a matter of decision, not it's an even playing field for them, they're looking at both, which platform would you lean more toward? What are the reasons that audio would be the one that they might prefer?
So it comes down to cost, including cost of hosting, cost of equipment, cost of time, where audio is going to be a little bit easier, barrier to entry, where all you need is a microphone, a computer, and a hosting site, and all of those things, but except for the microphone. The one I'm using is a $50 mic. That's all you need to get your voice into the world. So if somebody has zero technical ability, but they have a message for the world, start with audio because it's the easiest to get into and has the widest availability because you can be everywhere, including YouTube, with an audio-only podcast. The barriers are very few to that. That's where I would say if you have zero technical skills. Again, because if you don't have money to buy cameras, lighting equipment, big microphone setup, a backdrop, blah, 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 all the software you need to use to do all the video editing. If you don't have money for all of the things that come with video, then audio is an easy place to start. Thoughts on that?
I think, too, you're talking about your mic being $50. The mics that come within a standard laptop, which a lot of people have, they're not the strongest. I would suggest if you're getting started out, if you have a smartphone, use the smartphone. the mic on that is going to be a cleaner mic than what you're getting on the laptop. And most people have one or the other. You may have an ear pod or something that has a built-in mic with it too. That, I mean, if you, I don't know how the Android products are. I know the Apple products, they at least used to come with a wired earbuds that had a built-in mic. That was actually a pretty sensitive mic. To get started, I think that's this. So you may already have everything that's needed to start with that. But I think another thing too is the audio, like you had mentioned earlier, the audio is a little more portable because you can download 5 episodes on your phone and take it with you, or you can listen to it on your laptop while you're working in the kitchen or something. Right. You don't have to take a lot of bandwidth to download it, but you also don't need to have a lot of storage on your device to be able to carry it with you. Yeah. Unless you're like I am, my phone just gets too full no matter what. So,
all those cat videos.
I'm always trying to. Yeah. That's actually, you're so close to that. You. So, full disclosure, my cats have their own Instagram.
So yes, let's shout them out. Come on, shout them out. I want to go follow them right now. I have my phone's in my hand.
Little baby sniffles.
So I'm going there right now. You keep talking. I'm going to Instagram.
So you'll see it's been a little bit since I posted something new, but Austin is the orange one and Charlotte is actually the original Little Baby Sniffles, and it's because she sneezes all the time. Is why that's her name. So she is a gray and white cat. So yes. So there is a lot of cat video on my phone and the entire family because they send different ones to me to put up there.
Little Baby Sniffles.
So
done.
Yeah, there she is.
Done. I'm there. I'm following.
I'll tell them that they have a new follower now.
My wife is an avid cat person, and we're on the brink of getting a cat because we lost our cat several years ago, and he left a big hole in our heart. On a side tangent for people listening, sorry.
Yep.
But Liam was his name, and he tolerated me and loved my wife. And she's now been watching every single video or TikTok or anything about a cat. Oh. So we share back and forth, and she'll get a big kick out of that. So she'll be following as well. So anyway,
good.
Back to the podcast as recorded.
Back to that.
Yes.
So right. Well, I think another reason that audio could be a winner there is from the listener's point of view, it's easier to focus on the content. You're listening, you're not distracted with the bells and whistles that might be on the screen, or distracted by the person we had talked earlier about a host that's not looking at their guest. When you're looking at the video, if you have 2 talking heads side by side, and if you watch my video version of the Water Prairie Chronicles, you'll see my head is turned, but I'm actually turned toward my guest and not away. But it could be distracting, whatever you're seeing on the screen. You know, someone's talking and they're dropping something, so they're off screen, and you're trying to figure out where did they go. But you can actually hear the content of what's happening. So I think for me it is part of what I like about the audio side of podcasting is that I can truly hear what's happening, and my imagination comes in. You know, and so I'm able to kind of colorize the pictures and all in my mind, and I enjoy that part of it. What else are we missing on that as far as some of the benefits of audio?
What about some of the cons, I guess, too? Like, I'm thinking we covered a lot of the benefits, but I don't know if we talked too much cons.
Well, the last thing I shared, I would say could equally be a con. Okay. So you're missing the visual side of it. If you're a visual learner.
Yes, you're right.
And that's what you're attracted to. You need that on there. So I think that would be both sides there. You know, maybe you could look at a picture of it while you're listening or something. But that one, I think you had talked about the cost earlier. I think money-wise, I think it's more difficult, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me it seems like it's more difficult to monetize a podcast if that's what you're trying to do. If it's just audio, I think there may be more options through the YouTube Partner Program, yep. Or things like that. Though on both, you could still monetize if you're going to do affiliate programs or something like that, just in the show notes. So you could still hit that. I don't have a large enough podcast that it's a problem. So it's not an issue on either side for me. And I really would rather not have a lot of commercials on mine. So I'd rather monetize in a different way if there's a way to find through sponsorships or something without doing a lot of ads on it. Because I want my listener to hear the content.
Yeah.
And
yeah. You know, one piece of feedback I get about posting static image to YouTube that I get a lot of heat for is everyone's like, oh, check out your analytics, watch your watch time. You're going to get dinged by YouTube because you're not posting video. That's a terrible method. Blah, 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 blah. I want to remind you, I have 7 shows. I can't afford hosting for 7 podcasts, and I'm using YouTube as a Google Drive. I'm not really interested in the analytics of YouTube. I'm not trying to make $1 million on YouTube or get 1 trillion followers. It's a backup drive that people can watch and listen to my video or listen to my podcast. That's it. I'm not. So all of the things they tell me I'm doing wrong, I'm not doing it for any of those reasons. They don't apply to me. It's a storage drive that's available to anyone in the world who has YouTube. That's why I'm doing it.
Do you check your analytics on YouTube? I'm just curious if they're even right.
Small.
Where do you find that you get the most traffic?
As far as the watch time?
Well, just either views or downloads, depending on whether you're looking at audio or
audio. 99% more in audio than I do in video. Because again, I'm pulling from a ton of different sources, not just one source.
Right.
Right. So I'm getting,
right.
I'm listed in a podcast app in Africa called AfriPods.
Wow.
They want English speaking podcasts in Africa. It's not going to work on YouTube to reach that audience. So, but I am listed in AfriPods, and I'm listed in 2 in India because they use English podcasts to learn how to do conversational English. They're not even interested in my content.
True.
They don't even care what I'm talking about. They just want to know how to talk like we talk. And I'm like, well, what? Right. I never thought of that. Boy, I better watch my slang, Yeah. Because they're going to have a bunch of people saying y'all and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not how we talk. So, right?
Don't say y'all there, do you?
No, I don't know. No, we don't. We say A all the time.
I'm in the southeast of the U.S.
There you go.
So we say y'all here.
We say A and sorry all the time. So sorry, A.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, because my thought was another negative could be that engagement part, but you're not finding that. So with mine, I'm finding more views on YouTube than downloads on audio, depending on the episode. So this summer, I've had fewer downloads on the audio for every episode. It doesn't matter what the subject was, and a little bit more than the average on YouTube, but still not a lot. But where I've gotten a ton of hits are the webpage. So are they reading the transcript? I don't know, but they're coming to the webpage on it. And so I'm getting hundreds on that. I'm still trying to figure this out. It's like it'll flow one way for a while, then it flows the other way.
Good.
And so it'll be interesting to see if it's a seasonal thing with summertime. Primarily their families, their kids are home from school, and if their child has special needs, they're focused on their child right now because they've been home all summer. That might be why they haven't been able to access the content. And if that's the case, come September, I might have a huge boost with everyone catching up on what they missed over the summer.
Right. They should They should listen to every episode of your podcast. But yeah, that's a good point. It's seasonality. There's Christmas holidays. There's seasonal holidays. There's it's winter in Australia. It's summer for us. There's all kinds of things going on. You got to think, and I'm trying to encourage new podcasters to think beyond the borders of your town, your country. There's a global audience out there. Everyone's living in a different time zone and a different season, and we need to think big when we talk podcasting. Include as many people as possible, because some of that interaction and some of that feedback we're getting through our stats might be that we're not speaking to a global audience. Maybe we are too focused on just who are in our community that we're neglecting some people that might stick around if we were a little bit more open.
We're told over and over again that you need to niche down. You need to be niche down, however you want to say it. the ever changing argument of how to pronounce that word. But so for me, when I started out with this, I thought, all right, so who is my audience? Trying to define who that avatar is that I'm trying to talk to. And I knew kind of the idea of who that parent would be, but then thinking through, if I'm talking about educational laws and things like that, do I want to talk to the whole world, or am I just talking to the U.S.? So I started my focus just on the U.S. because there's differences in the educational systems. However, this summer I've been interviewing in Quebec, in Australia, And those conversations have been really interesting because we're comparing some of the differences. We're not with the podcast interview wasn't about the educational system, but because we're talking about children who are in school with special needs, it comes up because how does each country handle that? You're in Canada, I'm in the US. If we both had the same child facing the same
Right.
challenges, we can still learn from each other. And I, as a parent, can hear what worked for you, and it may not be called the same thing, but you can still share what the process is, and maybe that'll give me an idea of school to get my child what they need on this end, so that both kids are now benefiting from that. So I've opened the door now. We're talking all around the world now, and I really enjoy those. As a podcast host, though, and you've probably run into this too, it gets a little bit challenging whenever you're talking to someone on the other side of the world, trying to find a common time that you both are awake and able to go onto the call.
Right.
And as I'm scheduling, it'll be like the one that I just did in Australia. We're scheduling. I had the interview on Tuesday. She was on Wednesday, and so trying to be careful that I'm not confusing her of when we're having the interview by saying, I'll see you on Tuesday. And she's like, no, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we almost missed our call because of that. So, but it's,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. I think having a specific topic that we're talking about is fine for the niche, but not trying to shrink it so that it's just our community or just our town, because there's so many resources beyond that reach that could still, maybe your target is your town, but you can pull from all around to help support what you're doing with that.
Yeah. And when we talk in Canada and outside of the US, mostly it's niche.
I say it that way too.
It's interesting because that whole quote, the riches are in the niches. We laugh at that
Right.
because it's the reaches are in the niches. I don't know.
The reaches are in the niches.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But so for me, I have Dad Space Podcast, and I feel like I say this way too many times. Dad Space Podcast is made for men, husbands, fathers. Be good to themselves, be good to their community, to their partners, be a good example. 65% of my audience are female. It's a dad space podcast. Yeah. I'm talking to dads. So I have a niche. I'm focused on dads. I'm speaking to dads, but I celebrate that 65% of my audience are not even dads, because even though I'm focused on a niche, everyone is welcome. And if there's value in the content, right, I'm not going to say you're not allowed here. So don't be afraid to niche down and focus on one group of people and talk to them on a consistent basis, and realize when you look at your stats that the world is your oyster. Anyone can listen to your show, and embrace the fact that people you're not even talking to are there because there's value. So don't be afraid of that focused group that you speak to. Celebrate the fact that there's people there beyond your expectations that find value in who you are and your content. That's amazing. I love it. So I'm not changing my focus. Even with that high percentage of listeners, I'm still talking to men, but I celebrate the fact that women are finding value. That's awesome to me. I love it.
Well, I would say 50% of my listeners are not parents of children with disabilities. They're friends and neighbors, and a lot of them are teachers and professionals who work with those families, because they want to know how to understand what the parents are thinking and what their needs are and what they can do to help support them. I love it because their audience is my audience. So I wasn't reaching for them, but they're coming along for the ride, and they have a lot to add. But think of the value that they're getting. So that parent that I'm listening to, that I'm talking to, is now getting a double help because they're listening to the podcast, but then now they have a therapist who is also listening, who can come in and maybe help them a little bit better too. So you're right. It's, and so I think it's a twofold thing here. We're focused on a very specific group or specific audience. For you, it's dads. We can't control who tunes in. There's not like a password at the door that you can't come in and listen unless you have this. But it's, so as we're talking on the subjects and all, I think a lot of things, like you said, it doesn't have to just be in Canada for you. It could be anywhere. You and I are talking. We're not in the same country. It doesn't matter. Having a too narrow of a mind, I think, would keep us from expanding and going where we are. I love where you're being featured in other countries where may have nothing to do with what yours is. Someone may may benefit from that. Maybe they want to start a podcast in Africa or in India.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, and I think the one thing that also limits us is maybe if our content is so focused on our country of origin. So for example, if I listen to a UK podcast and they start talking about quid and pounds and money,
yeah,
I'm like, I have no idea if that's expensive or not.
What is
I'm
that?
like,
right.
5 quid. Did you say squid or quid? I don't know what that was. And then when I talk Canadian dollars compared to US dollars, that's a totally different thing. If I talk Canadian politics, you don't know what's going on here. You guys talk about American stuff. I've got no skin in the game. I have no idea.
Exactly.
You know, it's July 4th. Congratulations. I don't celebrate. I celebrate July 1st and you don't.
It's Thanksgiving. What day is it again?
Thanksgiving is always before Halloween. For me, so there's all these different things. And I think if we talk like U.S. football, I don't watch U.S. football, so I'm not your listener, right? So I talk Canadian hockey, and it's like, somebody in the Australia is like, what? So you know what I mean? So yeah, if we can be broad with our content and then embrace people who are listening elsewhere and go, oh, wait a minute, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar this is the math, or hey, UK, I said this, it's actually 12 quid. You know, oh. They're like, he said something to me.
Now it makes sense, right?
I understand. Yeah, right? So that's the part where I'm like, maybe we can increase our listenership just by realizing that people see things different than we do.
So one other thing I wanted to ask about with the audio part before we move on to more with video, are there any free editing software that you have used that you would recommend? I was thinking maybe if we can provide your listeners with some tools that they could take away from this too.
I love it. So I just bought a website because on top of doing podcasts, I buy websites. I have my howtopodcast.ca is my website for my show. But on there, if you scroll way down to the bottom, this website actually was built on Canva, by the way, just so you know. If you go all the way to the bottom, which I'm trying to do as I'm talking. Come on, computer.
Right.
You go all the way to the bottom. I have the domain podcastforfree.com. I don't know how I got this domain, by the way, podcastforfree.com. Anyways,
pretty good.
There is all of the tools that I use that are free. So if you go to podcastforfree.com, I have my audio that I use for free, my video tool that I use for free, Canva, Podlink, my Spotify for podcasters. I have a thing called Media Monkey, which gives me my images that I can attach to my MP3s. So if you play my audio in your car, you're not looking at a blank screen. It'll actually be the image from my podcast. It'll show on the screen of your car. Pretty cool.
Cool.
And when you download it, it'll also be there as well. So you're not just when you're streaming. That's Media Monkey. YouTube. I have Pod News, which I love. And a thing that really cool is called Cast Feed Validator, which will tell you give you like a health check, like seeing the doctor of podcasting.
Okay, right.
You can put your podcast in there and it'll tell you how you're doing, which is really kind of neat. So it's all on my website, podcastforfree.com. Go check it out. But yeah, so I use Audacity for my audio recording and I use OpenShot for my video. Audacity because I'm a music guy and I've been using it before I was a podcaster. So I took my learnings from doing music editing into podcasting. So for me, it's my comfort zone and I probably will never leave. Even with all the nice new shiny things that are out there, this is where I started and this is kind of where I'm sitting and it's my comfort zone. So, and it's free. So again, with 7 shows, free makes sense. So that's kind of where I go for my audio. What about you? So
Audacity is still my audio as well. I'm recording through a different platform, but even with the video, I feed the audio track into Audacity to clean it up. Because a lot of times, like, I don't know about you, I'm recording on a laptop. The fan will get into the play sometimes. And so I can get the buzz of that out. Or just before we logged on, my AC kicked in. So I was able to turn it off. It's staying off so far, but that may be a rumble in the background, things like that. I had one guest who had a dog jingling in the background, and so I didn't catch it, but I was able to get the panting out of it by doing that. If I put it into my video editing software, that's harder to do, but just the easy noise reduction on that I can do. And then I have tried a little bit with GarageBand, but I'm not using a Mac now. So, but listeners who don't have a Windows system
Right.
may want to use that instead. I don't know any others for Mac. Do you know?
Audacity works on Mac.
Audacity works on Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then just go with
Yeah.
Audacity. That's
Yeah.
the easiest one.
That's a nice one. It's not as pretty as like Descript, which a lot of people I work with love. And they love it because they don't edit the way I edit. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's what works
Right.
for them. And you can edit by looking at words on a page and deleting words and adjust your podcast. Great. If that works for you, I would be completely frustrated by that because I look at waveforms and I can tell what's going on. I can add music and all kinds of sound effects, and I can blend things because of my music background. So again, it's just how you approach it. I am not here to say Audacity is the only way. I'm not here to say that Descript is the only way. I'm here to say there's many great tools. Do what works best for you, and don't let somebody beat you up for using a tool they don't use. Use what works for you.
And listeners, if you have a laptop, you may have something that came with it.
Right.
So Audacity did not come with mine. I don't know if that's ever pre-installed, but it is free and easy to download. Doesn't take a lot of space. It was an easy one. And GarageBand I tried for the first time because I use an iPhone, so it was on my phone, and I played around with that some. But this was the easier learning curve for me, so I stayed with that. I do use Descript, but I don't use it to edit my audio. So that's and we had talked about that when we talked about the AI issues, that it's such a harsh cut on it. So those if you do use it that way, I think there is a way to put a pause in, but I'm with you. I'm going to work more with the waveforms on that part. And to me, Audacity is a lot easier, or any program that you use. We're both saying Audacity because we're used to that. But if it's an audio editor, you're going to have your layers that you can look at, and you should be able to see the bandwidths and the layers that way. But to me, it's easier to add layers than it is with Descript. And it's nothing against Descript because I do use it for other things. But when I've tried to add sound layers with it, and sometimes I might have 4 or 5 layers of audio that are coming through, I can't see what I'm doing on that. It's
Right.
just it's too even if I'm not doing any type of video on it, it's just too small of a panel to work with for me.
Right.
So and it's like you were saying, it's more what I'm used to.
Yeah. And
I wish I could do more, but I don't understand everything on it.
Yeah. So like my wife and technology don't get along at all. If you have to update your password at a certain time, it'll happen to her. Everything that goes wrong with technology happens to my wife, Jen. So
Oh no.
when I say to her, hey, would you like to try this? She's like, no. But I'm actually teaching her Audacity right now. And so if you're thinking, Dave, Tonya, this sounds like it's out of my scope, I don't do this well, you can learn it and do the basics. And once you do it, rinse, repeat over and over, it becomes habit. And you go it's like riding a bike. When you first were introduced to a bike, you're like, there is no way I'm getting on 2 wheels and trying to go down the road. That's ridiculous. You might look at Audacity or some other software and go, there is no way that I am going to know how to do this. This is beyond me. There's people who will help you. There's YouTube University. There's some way that you can learn if you have the desire to try. Hook up with somebody. Tonya can help you. I can help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll walk you through it. We'll do a screen share. Click here. Do this. Here's the basics. And then you can grow from there.
And I would say too, along with that, if you're going on to YouTube or somewhere and you're looking for tutorials, if whoever you're watching, if it's just over your head and just if they're moving too fast, whatever, look for someone else. There's a lot of people out there doing it, and there's always someone that you'll be able to learn from. But as Dave said, feel free to contact us anytime. It's an easy thing to go on together. If we don't know it, we'll find out with you and figure it all out. I always love learning something new while I'm teaching.
See? Great.
And it does happen that way.
And then we talked hosting options was part of our other conversation. I know we've been talking for a long time, and I don't want to wear you out, Tonya. But hosting options, I know that you can have your video podcast outside of YouTube on Spotify. If
Yes.
the qualifier,
If.
if you are hosted through their platform, you can have a video podcast on Spotify. I've tried it. I've done like little short ones with my phone and posted it, and I get views. So what happens is they take the video out and they release the audio to all the other different apps. So you can
Okay.
still hear my episode on Google, but you can't see it. Apple also supports video on their podcast app. So there is video, and video has been a part of podcasting way back into the beginning of podcasting. It's not a new thing. It's been around
Right.
for a long time. So it is possible, but just keep in mind, if you're going to have a paid host, I believe Libsyn does this for video, you're going to pay for the size of the files combined over time. You pay for this. It's going to cost you money. So if you're thinking podcasting is for me, but I don't have a lot of money, audio is cheaper than video for hosting and file size. Just keep it in mind. And if you want to do video, go for it. Great. Again, if you're a video person and you want to be a podcaster, you have all the setup, you have all the expertise and all the equipment, it makes sense for you to have a video podcast. That's your comfort zone. That's who you are. Then don't think that you have to do only audio. And if you're
Right.
audio only and video is not your game, you don't have to do video. There are no rules in podcasting. Just great suggestions and great people like Tonya who can help you and walk you through this kind of stuff. So that's what we're saying. And that's why I really want the message to come clear is in our discussion, audio versus video, there's advantages, disadvantages to both. There's all kinds of great opportunities, no matter which one you choose, but choose one and start. That's the big thing.
Yep. No, I agree on that.
Good stuff. Anything else that we want to chat about before we hit stop? You had a curveball for me. Did it come up yet?
I think, well, it didn't come up. I'm going to save that.
Oh,
So
dang. Now that's called a hook. I love it. I love a
we're
hook.
going to work that in maybe next month and see what we can pull
See
in
what-
there.
Okay, for those listening, she just did this to me as well. So you listening and me, we just got hooked by that. That was good. And she's very good at playing cards because she's not even giving us a hint. So I love that.
Nope.
You're a good card player, I bet. I love it.
By then it'll be old news, but we'll see. We'll see.
In podcasting, everything old is new again. So I love it.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's one thing that I like about it. I know on the video side on YouTube, it has the searchable side of it. People are coming all the time, but I don't know about you, but when I look at my data for my downloads, I get as many downloads for the first 10 episodes as I've had for the last 10 episodes. Well, actually, I think I have more for those, and they continue each week. My first, second, third episode are still getting downloads.
Yeah.
Because you can still find the topics. And as you find a new podcast, I don't know about you, I go back to see what other topics they've done that I want to hear about.
Yeah. So keep that in mind when you create content. Create evergreen content that can stand the test of time. Don't just, unless you're a news podcast and you do a daily news show, you have to wait for the news to happen to talk about it. But for those people that are creating content, create something that people can find and then binge. I love Netflix because when I find a show that I love, you better believe I'm going back to episode 1. I want to know everything. I want to know the character development. I want to know everything. And if you listen to our shows back to episode 1, you're going to hear a very different podcast than you hear today because we're different people. We've learned things. We've made mistakes.
We've learned a lot.
Grown, right? So I love it. So when I look at my stats, there's one episode in particular. I have no idea what the heck is going on, but all time, it's got 39,000 downloads.
Wow.
For one episode. And it's about me talking about how to deal with a hater. And I share a story about somebody who threw hate at me and how I dealt with it. And again, that's episode 76 if you're interested. But 39,000 listens. I get about 100 to 200 listens a day. And I'm like, what is going on?
I could see that though.
Right?
Because anyone that's on any social platform, whether it's podcasting or video or on regular social media, everyone has that question. How do you handle this?
Yeah.
I was just on with another podcaster over the weekend, and we were just kind of sharing some ideas and trying to problem solve a few things. And that was one of the things that came up, that he was just like, well, this is the way he handles it is very different from the way that I handle it, but we all have to come to it on our own. But it's, but I could see that being a topic that they're finding it.
And then you're thinking, well, Dave, that's a crazy number. I'll never hit that number. I look back at my beginning of my podcast for the first, I don't know, year. I'm looking at 9 downloads, 20 downloads, 10 downloads, 39. Like what the heck is going on? There's a big change there, right? So just saying, it's kind of like steps. First step, ground floor. You're going to spend some time there, and then you're going to move up a notch. And that's your new normal. And then that becomes your ground floor. And then you're going to move up another one. That becomes your ground floor. It's going to happen over time. And if you create great content, people are going to find it, fall in love with it, start sharing it. It's going to happen. So just take your time, show up, do your best with what you have. If it's a phone, if it's a $50 mic, whatever you got, get the content out there, and then get better, improve, invest, research, study, grow. That's how we all improve. That's how it all happens.
When I think an important part for especially a new podcaster that's listening to us, because you can get hung up in those stats. Right. And I mean, my last 3 episodes have had 5 and 4 downloads over the last 3 weeks.
See?
So those are low for what it is. I'm not at 39,000, okay, no. for anything, but I'm seeing steady growth that's coming up. But then if I just looked at those last 3, I'm thinking, well, what's wrong? Is it my topic? Is it something I'm doing? Is it too long? Is it too short? Yeah. All those things. I don't worry about that because I look at podcasting as a long game, and I don't want to come out of the gate and have all these spikes right away, because that's telling me that someone's looking at that particular episode only. They're not, more than likely, they're not going to come along for the ride. I want listeners who are going to come in and get value from the series of what we're doing. Yeah. And over time, they're going to continue coming back, because that's where the community comes from. It's where the connection that we into you today just for one time. I want you to come back next week. I want you to listen to all of Dave's episodes, whether I'm here or not, because you're going to form a relationship with him and follow him along for the ride. Yeah. And that I think is what's fun with this, because then you start getting those emails from our listeners, and we know that we're connecting with people, even though we never see them, we're still connecting. And to me, that's where the value of this is you feel connected with your listener and with the host that's coming in.
Nice. So yeah, like I'm just looking back on my last 5 episodes, 20 listens, 10 listens, 13 listens, 39 listens, 25. So there you go. What I love about what you did there, Tonya, was everybody's afraid to say a number as a podcaster, because we want smoke and mirrors. We want everybody to think we're making millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of downloads. And I think a new podcaster coming into the space gets overwhelmed by people with huge numbers that scare them away, going, I can't do that. There's no way. Yeah. So when you said those numbers, Tonya, it's like, hey, I'm okay. I'm all right. I got 5 listens and I'm not alone. This is good. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that somebody said a number. Thank you.
When these aren't going to stay at 4 and 5.
No.
They're, like I said, it's a long game. And what I expect to see is a graph. And of course, those that are listening can't see me, but you're going to
video podcast.
That's right. So you're going to see a steady growth, and then it should exponentially start going up. My YouTube channel did that with cooking. For the first 2 years, there was like flat line.
Right.
And then all of a sudden am I a mega cooking show? Absolutely not. But it's coming up, and I don't have to for 3 months, and it's still growing. And then I'll release a few and it grows some more. So it's, it's just there because everything is searchable. And like that, what we're releasing on these topics, it's searchable content. It's evergreen content that people are going to always need to know or want to know. So those that are listening, if you only have one, or maybe no one listened to your last one, they will find it. Just leave it out there. Don't take it down. Leave it up there. And go on to the next one. Learn from whatever happened. Maybe it was a title issue. Maybe it was how you started. And I've made those tweaks to try to fix it. And so I have found that a shorter jumping into what I'm talking about is better than having a long drawn out music and intro and everything else. at least for my listeners. I think there are some, you know, the most well-known podcaster out there, they would listen to anything that I said for as long as I wanted to say it. So it wouldn't really matter. But for me, it does matter.
Right.
So I try to jump in to try to get there. I'm still trying to work on refining my hook, a skill that I may be working on for years before I get it. We'll see, but I'm determined to try to get it.
Right.
So I'm talking to anyone that I can to try to help me learn how to jump in and get your interest right away. But these are all, there's so many skills to learn, which is why your podcast is great, because you're talking about bits here and there. And by listening, you start getting a better picture of what it is. And it's all manageable. Anyone listening to this can do this.
Right. The one thing I've added on top of my 7 shows, because I have time, right, is I created on, I don't know if you've heard of Meetup before.
Yes.
Say Meetup. I have a Meetup now for the How to Podcast community. And
Nice.
I host Meetup meetings. And I had my first one this last week. 6 people signed up. 2 people showed up. But I got a chance to talk to 2 brand new podcasters who don't have a show. They've never had a show. They have no idea what I'm doing or what they're doing as podcasters. And we had this, but live with new people.
Right.
So I have the option of bringing in guest speakers to talk to these audiences and build community. Yeah. So I'm sending an invite to you if you're available. I'm going to be doing them on Monday nights now, and they're going to be free. I don't charging for anything, but to come and join other podcasters and to hear from voices in podcasting outside. And it's a video. It's kind of a video, right? It's very interactive. I have to brush
my hair. Come on.
So if you're interested, I'll send you the link, but I'd love to have you pop in, share your wisdom as a featured speaker, and meet new podcasters. So that's my new thing, is building community outside of the podcast by having and hosting meetups. So that's my new, new toy.
This is what I was saying. I mean, so you're building your community here, whether it's a Facebook group or however you're doing it. It's beyond just us talking to a microphone. There are people on the other side, and I love it whenever we're able to connect with them and to find out who they are. And an email or a message on Instagram makes my day whenever I see that someone responded to something that was out there.
Amazing. Right. Okay, before we go, promote the Instagram account for your cats again. And because I'm going to share that with my wife, and your show, do all that, please.
All right. So the Instagram for the cats is Little Baby Sniffles.
I love them. I love them.
Austin and Charlotte, but you never see Charlotte's name because she's Baby Sniffles on her public profile. And then and just for the record, Austin is completely driving Charlotte crazy right now. So you should be seeing some coming up of some skirmishes between them, I think, because he's the pesky little brother is what it is. And they have that personality. And then the podcast, which is more important, is the Water Prairie Chronicles. And that's for parents of children with disabilities and special needs and anyone who supports them and works with them. So check that out. I'd love to hear your feedback on what we're doing there, things that you'd like to see us do. And we're on most social media. Honestly, though, I'm more active on Instagram than anything else. I'm just I had to choose one that was the easier one for me. So and there it's water.prairie. If you do check out the Instagram.
For those enjoying the video footage of our podcast, there's a cat enjoying a fish. Very much, right?
There's Austin.
Right? Austin is just killing a fish with his back feet. And for those listening, you're like, what? So, yeah.
Austin will play fetch for half an hour straight. And he will go get that fish. This is one of those that are listening. This is one of those fish that has the battery inside that flaps around. It's not even charged. It's just a heavy fish. He'll go and get it. And Austin weighs 11 pounds, but he looks like he's a newborn. He's so little still. And he'll carry that fish that's as big as he is hanging out of his mouth. And you'll hear it thump on the ground about every 5 feet because he can't hold on to it. And then he'll pick it up and bring it and they'll drop it at your feet and wait for you to throw it for him. It's too heavy to throw because it'll end up taking him out.
I love it. So we're going to get a bunch of new followers for the cats. This is amazing. Amazing. So that's great. Tonya, come back again, please. Please come back.
I would love to.
Because you have me in suspense about your topic as well. But I want you back because you bring a lot of great insight. You're so fun to talk to. And I love the heart that you have for podcasters and for the people you serve with your podcasts. Amazing. So
thank you.
Keep going. Never stop. And thank you for giving us a huge chunk of your time today. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks.
As always, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.